So, hey guys, I am super excited. As Keith and I were just saying, we're here at night. In fact, I'm actually at my parents' house. As funny as that sounds, I'm not at the MagMod office. I'm not at my home. I'm at my parents' house. But I was talking to Keith. Keith, you're in St. Louis, is that right?
That is correct. Home of the St. Louis Cardinals, the Blues, and the Arch. Gooey butter cake, St. Louis ribs, as you have enjoyed before too as well.
I have. I'm actually looking forward to being back there in April and trying some more. I love all of that. So, um, hey, well, Keith, let's go ahead and jump in. I know, like I said, you were one of the early adopters to MagMod, and this is 2013, late 2013 is when MagMod launched a Kickstarter. I think they started delivering in early 2014, if I remember correctly. And if did you actually participate in that first Kickstarter? Is that not correct?
Yeah, once I got word of it from Spencer that he was starting such a project, I mean, I was all on board. Um, you know, Prior to that, just like most people, we used Honlo grids and gears, and dealt with Velcros, losing Velcro strips, being noisy at when switching out grids at churches and so forth was just such a pain in the ass. So we were really excited about the idea, and it didn't take me long to decide that when he started the Kickstarter, where do I sign up, take my money, how many can I get, what's the highest package? I want us to be very supportive of the program and hope it comes to light. And obviously, a lot of other people felt the same way. So I was counting down the days until it came, and I was even fortunate enough to kind of with part of the Genesis workshop group, there's a kind of somewhat of a closed group, which Spencer was an instructor for, not as part of my group. He was an instructor for the third class. He was able to contact some of us and kind of get some more feedback from another photographer's perspective, even though he's well versed with light. So yeah, I was, as soon as I signed up right away, and as soon as they were released and started shipping, I got those suckers and never looked back. Now I think I use the Honlo straps, the ones that go around the flashes to tape on the Velcro. I use those to hold my MagMod gels now instead, along with the little wallet. But that's all it's good for. I can't even sell them. I have them for sale and nobody even wants them. I think MagMod pretty much cleaned up the market from there on. So yeah, definitely one of the early adopters.
It has been popular, and I will agree. I think the interesting thing for those who don't know, Spencer, the guy who started MagMod, was a photographer just like all of us. He was a successful wedding and senior photographer down at Tucson. Did a ton of senior photos, and I love the fact that you brought up that. I mean, he had a great reputation. People just appreciated Spencer. He knew what he was doing, and anyhow, this isn't. I don't mean to go off on talking about him, but I think we all appreciate the fact that a photographer, somebody who basically found a problem and then found a solution for it, So anyhow.
Well, the funny thing is, Spencer's like basically the godfather. Happy birthday, Spencer, by the way. I know it was his birthday the other day. It got
yesterday.
On the wall. So yeah, happy birthday to him. The godfather of MagMod. But it's not that it's funny. It's like it wasn't exactly a problem, but I think everyone just kind of accepted the way Honol and all these other companies did gel, did grids, did any kind of modifiers, and didn't think of anything innovative and how it could be better. In some ways, I don't even know if the people that did create those products actually used them for real practical situations in weddings and engagement sessions, and saw how it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it could definitely be perfected. And it didn't have to be terribly expensive, and it could be made with quality material. And I think that's where Spencer saw that there was a certain need for and demand for that kind of product. And the great thing too, and I don't need to fluff you guys up, but you guys continue to pursue the modular characteristics of MagMod. So I'm glad it doesn't just stop with grids and gels and mag spheres and snoots and stuff like that. So it's really cool. I'm excited.
We can't say what's coming down the pipeline, but oh man, rest assured there's some really cool stuff that Spencer he continues his looking out there in the future and saying, okay, what is some of the issues or what are some of the things we can make better? And I'm excited about what's coming down the pipeline. So, but Keith, before we stumble and I give away any more than that, let's jump into maybe one of your first images that you created using MagMod. Can we do that?
Yeah. I mean, I pulled aside a few images that I kind of want to talk about, and one of them actually was probably as far as I can remember, one of the first times using the MagMod gear. Let me just go ahead and share the screen here. Let me know if you're able to, start, if you can see that.
We stopped for just a second. Oh, looks like it's coming again here. Cool. Yep, I see it.
Great. Okay. So this is actually my son, Beckett. He's now 3 years old and quite ferocious. You might, hear him through our live feed here too as well. But meaning like, wife Allie's trying to put him to sleep, so he doesn't go down really easy, but not like this where he would sleep quite a bit of time. He's probably about a couple of weeks old at this point, and one of the cool things, about having your own kid and not photographing other kids and babies and newborns is that if they don't feel like being photographed or they're not up for the task, you can say, okay, no problem, we'll do this later. Not like when you're photographing, again, doing a session with a newborn, you have to make it happen within the next, hour or two, or as long as you want to stay there. But so in this case, we were up, to give you a little bit of background here, is that we were up every 3 hours, as most new parents can kind of attest, or recent parents, is that, you're waking them up to feed them. So, we were up pretty late. I think it was about maybe around the 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. shift where my wife Allie was sitting in the room and trying to, nurse him. And I wanted to have this idea that I want to take this, picture of him through, kind of like wheels and tires. Part of the inspiration was that Allie and I are big car people. We love cars, and that's how we met. So, I had this one wheel. It's actually a Champ Car / Indy Car wheel, very, very lightweight, race used and everything like that. So it's pretty wide. It's about 15 inches. And then that's the one in the center where Beckett's in. And then on the right is just our track wheels that we will use on the track. These ones that actually haven't been used or maybe have been used very lightly. That's why there's not a whole lot of, they're not really messed up too much. You can kind of see there's a weight on it. But either way, I was really inspired that we wanted to do something with cars with them without, being too cheesy. Another point of, I would be remorse if I didn't also say part of the inspiration came from seeing one of Tony Hoffer, one of my friend Tony Hoffer's images where he placed a baby in a drum because I think the father or the couple was very much into music, if you ever seen that image. But it's very, very cool. So I've never been much of a kind of put a baby in a basket kind of thing and make them, do these weird, unusual kind of poses with wings on their backs and stuff like that. So anyway, I had this idea that I wanted to put them in the wheel, and this was, again, being 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at night. We had to light up the entire thing, and then in our room light, like most room light that you have, it's very yellow, not very good. So I wanted to light it up the way I wanted to light them up. So in this case, I'm using a combination of I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 4 flashes, I believe, and they're all modified. The funny story is that I didn't have enough MagMod grids at that time. I think I maximized on the purchase that I did back then, and I had to do a combination of Hono grids as well. So which was very, very minimal, but it was all done, majority of MagMod grids. And if I had more MagMod grids, I totally would have used it. But yeah, I wanted to place that light very, very accurately on Beckett. So, even though I mentioned that it was shot at, that I started the process at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it goes exactly how I kind of started with this image, or the introduction of this image, is that he wasn't up to the task. I put him down, and who wants to be in a wheel, right? If you're 2 weeks old or 20 years old, nobody wants to really sit in a wheel. I put him in there, and he was not happy. So I said, okay, fine, we'll try it again after you have your next time when you nurse. So after that, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I have the exif information here. 5:41 a.m. in the morning after
Nice.
finished feeding. put him in the wheel. He was probably, drunk on milk. Threw him in there and took the picture. For the people that are interested, you can kind of tell by the distortion on the left and the right that it was shot with something pretty wide. I shot with a 16 millimeter lens because I wanted to get the amount of part of the reason why is that you don't obviously see my house and so forth. I don't have a lot of room to back up in. It was for me. I wanted to get the wheels. I wanted the toy car or the kind of ride-on car on the left side of the image, and I wanted to get the entire room too as well. And I didn't since I didn't want to get distortion on him, I made sure that he was placed in the middle. So this was shot with a 1635 v2, shot at 16. The ISO is at 1600. It's not a ton of ambient light really because it was pretty. There was no light, other than our room light, but all the light that I produced was through flashes, and luckily enough, by the way, the shutter speed was at 1/200th of a second and f5.6. So and with the 16 and 35, it's pretty sharp either way. You shoot at 3.5 or 5.6. You get the point. I wanted to make sure to get the kind of the wording in the background. Welcome, baby, Lee in the back. So sorry, did you have a question or?
Oh, I was just gonna say it's a really cool shot, and I think what really makes the shot is that the light control going on here. I mean, you have these specific light and shadows, but yet the focus where the majority of the light is on the baby, and then also I kind of feel like even kind of on the crib to kind of show like, hey, we're in a baby's room, but yet these wheels are essentially what define or a big hobby of this family. But mainly, like I said, the light control. I mean, if you use something large and you just had light bouncing all over the place, or if you didn't use grids and that light's going all over the place, then it's going to be an entirely different shot. And so I think that's what really makes this shot is that control of light.
Thank you, and yeah, absolutely. I think if it was just pop a flash on top of the camera, or just using one flash to light up the entire image or entire room would be very flat, very one-dimensional, and I wanted to be a lot more dramatic. That's what I was kind of going for, and it was funny. I took so much time setting up this image, and if I may, I'm gonna show you another image here. So Beckett wasn't very cooperative. So what I did was, working for Build-A-Bear, I used a horse, a Clydesdale actually, for the St. Louis fans here and there that we sell Clydesdale. I put a Clydesdale in there to make sure that the lighting was accurate. Last thing I want to do is stick a Beckett or a baby in there and know that I only have seconds to take the image and the lighting is slightly off. And just like you said, with the MagMod grids, this is before we had snoots, by the way, or out from snoots. But it had to be extremely accurate, and I didn't want it to fall in the right place. So I very much measured 5 times and shot one, or cut once, if you want to say, measured twice, cut once. That's how I went with this. Placed the bear, shot it. Okay, babe, I'm ready. After you're done feeding him, I'm going to put him in. Shot a couple images. That's what he started fussing after, probably the 4th or 5th image, and pulled him out, and I was already done. So it was good. So some of the setup here, actually, let me see if I can drag it along. Some of the setup that I used here here's the room now. It's kind of lit up, as you can kind of see. You have this is obviously Beckett's done. He's back in his crib, not in the crib over here, but our pack and play in our room. But so I took the time to kind of take some of these images in the background. You can see that I wanted to light up this the main center wheel. Had kind of somewhat backlight. I love the way the light was hitting the floor and the rim light in the background. So I had one flash in the back over there, and you can kind of see it's gridded because I don't want the spill to be all over the place. In fact, I think I have it gridded twice, so just to make sure that light was really accurate. I just want just enough rim light in the background. I also didn't want to miss out on this toy car to be, or I say toy car, but this kind of rolling car to be backlit too as well. I felt like I did some images, some test images without it being lit, and it didn't have the same effect. I like the wow factor from that, so I wanted to be lit too as well. So, and I have some more detailed, closer images for that. If this over here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. But if
We can.
the flash behind their black wheel, if that looks like a like a container of Vaseline, that's exactly what it is. It's a container of Vaseline holding it up. And then you can kind of see on the image left, there's another light over here, which is what is actually hitting inside the wheel, right? So that you can kind of see right there that has a MagMod grip and two grids on there. It's kind of on a makeshift light stick, as I call a light stick, and a Gorilla Pod that's keeping it up. Really, really makeshift at this point. This to try to keep it up. And then you can kind of see on the top left of the corner, and I'm going to show you a different image of that, but I got an umbrella going on to light up this is before MagSphere, right? And any of those kind of additional products. So what I used was just more of an umbrella, a white umbrella to light up the back of the wall to show off Welcome Baby Lee, a little bit the crib like you had mentioned too as well. So,
yeah, well, and I think the idea there is, I mean, because a lot of times you can combine, large modifiers and small modifiers, and I think in this situation, what you've done is you've combined that large modifier to basically or essentially light up the room behind them, but that's not the focus light. In other words, the light that really makes it, the on the baby there is that double gridded light sitting on the stand, that's focusing that light right on the baby, and then that umbrella essentially is just adding a little bit of ambient light to the background so we know where they're, what room they're in. So
yeah, that's exactly it. The umbrella is more kind of the ambient and I dare say maybe main light, but yeah, that's what I use to kind of light the entire room rather than being dependent on our pretty shitty lamp that would go in the back corner. In back of the umbrella is where that room light, but the room lamp or the floor lamp was located. Here's a different perspective here. You can kind of see again the flash that's hitting the speed light that's hitting the wheel, and then you have the other one that's hitting the car, and then you can get a better idea of the light that's hitting inside the wheel. That's held somewhat with a Gorilla Pod and a light stick. Again, I'll have a better image of that. And then you have the umbrella that's being flashed and getting that ambient light and lighting up the back wall as well as the crib.
That's awesome. So Keith, you have another baby being born in a couple months. Are you going to try to outdo this photograph?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Allie did say, she goes, you got to come up with something cool like that, but more for girly. I'm like, oh man, and the wheels are turning. But the reality is, I don't think I came up the idea for this image until maybe a couple hours when I started setting it up. So hopefully I'll feel inspired. I do have actually, now that I think about it, I do have some ideas, and I don't want to give it away because we'll let it be a surprise.
That's right, man. We look forward to seeing it. So Keith, would you say one of your favorite modifiers is the grid, or what do you tend to use most when you're out working?
Hands down, the grid. Just making that light very, very kind of pinpoint as much as I can. If I had to give up all my modifiers and had to keep one, the grid would be it. Yeah. Probably be pretty close to the spear, but I think usability, the grid is what I would use.
Very cool.
Here's the last flash I was kind of showing you. That was the one that was on Beckett on the baby. It's double gridded too as well. Pretty close in. So making sure that light doesn't spill all over the place. So I guess in total that was probably, I think that's 6 grids that I use, MagMod grids that is, 6 or 5 or 6. So I ran out. I definitely have more now. So if I have to do that image of our baby girl, I'll definitely have plenty of grids.
Well, you have officially become the MagGrid king. No, that's awesome. Well, very cool. Well, thanks so much for showing those and those behind the scenes photos. I would love to see what other. Oh, there we go. You're ahead of me already. I'm gonna say how else have you used those grids or the other modifiers in your work? What a cool shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish I took the time to capture more behind the scene images. When things are rocking and rolling, especially on a wedding day or an engagement session, or on a cold day like this, last thing you want to do is keep your clients there any much longer than you need to posed up. For this image, this was, as you can imagine, a December day, actually close by a skating rink. If for anybody that's listening in or watching in St. Louis, this is by Steinberg Park. ice rink park where you have a log of, a bunch of logs for fire, for the fire warm, keeping everyone warm around the skating rink. People kind of congregate over here and keep warm and so forth. And I wanted to do something really, really cool with the couple over here when they were standing by the fire, trying to get a little bit of warmth in. And I wanted to, it seemed kind of cool. I think it was cool enough having the fire in the picture. And Allie was standing on kind of like on camera left, where she's standing up really, really high, has the speed light in her hand, a 600EX with a MagMod grid too as well, and just wanted to light that couple up. Now, to add to the story, there was a guy there. I'm not even sure if he worked there. If he did, he was kind of like responsible for bringing more logs out there. But he offered to, because we were getting intermittent sparks that were coming out of the fire, but he offered to kind of start kicking the logs to get more fire, that, more of the sparks that are out of there. I'm like, that's no problem. I appreciate it. I definitely don't want you to do it if you feel like it's unsafe, but I mean, risking, obviously safety and then ruining his boots probably, kicking the fire. But he went ahead and did it, and he did an awesome job. I just love the way that fire kind of like, I took probably a series of 4 or 5 shots, but this one I liked the most, obviously, because the way that sparks kind of almost curl around their faces. And I shot this with a 45 tilt shift, probably at, I believe it was f 2.8, and probably ISO 1600. Let me just double check. But that's that. I think, yeah, actually, yeah, 1/200 of a second, 2.8, ISO 1600. I was right. There you go. I didn't even have to check. Well, awesome. The cool part too is I think it even makes it more complicated is being tilt shift and being manual focus, as you know. So I can't rely on autofocus or anything like that. I have to kind of make sure that the image is pretty on focus and pretty sharp, or as sharp as possible. The light in the background, by the way, you see kind of that spark of light and kind of someone in the middle of the frame. That actually is not a flash. I don't know if anybody thinks it is, but it was just more of I think it was one of these lamps that were in the background. But I kind of love the way it kind of turned out. Again, using that the MagMod grid to focus that light. That's why you don't have spill all over on their jackets or on the bottom of the ledge, or kind of like at the beginning of the fire pit, or even on the wood. And that kind of I think really makes the image for me. Just using 1 or 2 grids. In this case, I believe it was just 1. If it hit anywhere in the background, that's fine because it's all open space. So if there was anything behind them, maybe we would have got a little bit of spill or some shadow. But since there's nothing in the background, it kind of works out for me.
I love it, man. I'm a big fan of tilt shift as well. It's definitely one of those lenses where I don't use it as a primary lens, but I love pulling it out in those situations where I feel like I already got some shots that I like, and then I want to do something a little bit more creative. For those who aren't familiar with tilt shift, basically if you look at this image, and the way you can tell it's a tilt shift is you see how their jackets are out of focus, but then their faces are in focus. And essentially that's all kind of on the same plane or same depth. And so the tilt shift essentially just knocks that. So it's out of focus there. It's out of focus on the very top of the frame, but you got this sliver. It looks like you were even tilted diagonal just a little bit because you got this sliver of focus that goes across from kind of the top left corner down to her face. So really, really cool image. I love it, Keith. And by the way, for those who are watching, real quick, I was just going to mention, for those who are watching live, if you guys have any questions, I am monitoring the chat here, and I should be able to see them as they pop up. So if you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, obviously we can't respond to those live, but if you guys have questions, feel free to post those. So sorry, go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to say one of the other reasons why I love using a tilt shift is not only changing the plane of focus, but it has a very low contrast and it can be extremely tack sharp. So it just gives you that paint kind of feel that a lot of my clients really like. So yeah, I use them on a lot of my images, but sometimes I gotta kind of remind myself to be a little bit more diverse in my lens selection and change things up at times.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's awesome, man. Very cool. What else do you got for us? I'd love to see some more of your stuff. I'm a huge fan. By the way, Keith, for those who are watching, and maybe we can mention this towards the end as well, but if they want to see more of your work, where is it? What's your website?
It's www.keithleestudios.com. That's plural, KEITHLE studios.com. You can catch me on Instagram too. That's, this at Keith Lee Studios. Boudoir stuff, we have Keith Lee Studios Uncovered. Not very safe for work, so you got to watch that. And if you do, you got to explain that to your wife while you're checking out pictures of beautiful women too as well. So yeah, there's a couple of different ways of finding us.
Hey, draw me like your French girl, or what's that quote?
Yeah, Jack, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Now, okay, so this image, you know what I love about this shot? And before you talk about it, is I just love the balance of light and ambient. I think that's one of the things that's such a kind of a lost art in photography. It's, so many photographers are shooting wide open, and then their skies just go white. And so I love how you're able to capture that blue sky with so many different interesting shades of light, essentially. So.
Yeah, I totally agree, Trevor. I think it's pretty easy to shoot wide open all the time, and hell, I did it when I first started out. But and I think one of the misconceptions too about off-camera flash or just flash in general is that it's only used when it's for dark situations and indoor locations. You can definitely use it in the daytime and balance light out. Like in this case where it's, you can kind of tell what, just judging by the image. I'll be able to tell you it's actually 3:48 p.m. Central Time. Not that it makes a huge difference, but on mid-August, August 21st. So you can imagine that's, in some cases, some photographers say that's the worst time to do pictures, right? It's the sun is almost basically a dead center on top of you, where it's going to cause these unflattering shadows under eyes and under nose cavities and mouth and so forth. So this doesn't look very flattering at times, where most people would like to have the light, behind them to get that kind of golden hour kind of look, or having kind of backlit with some rim light. So in this case, I just remember it. The couple was really awesome, and they gave us plenty of time to do portraits. And I came up on this area and on this building, and we were just about to leave, and I said, wait, I have this one more idea that I think I want to try out. And I don't often take pictures from a vertical position. Usually it's like most photographers, I think we always take them kind of horizontal. In this case, I took it vertical only because I wanted to make sure that I got the peak of the building going all the way down, which was kind of one of my common themes that I like to follow, is leading lines. So that brings you straight to the couple at the bottom and meets you right at that edge with the fence too as well, or the gate that's kind of holding them. In this case, I used a MagMod sphere, a mag sphere, which is mag sphere and a speed light, obviously. So that kind of like gives you that somewhat a soft kind of look, soft light. But yet, casting those kind of nice shadows underneath her jawline and by her neck and so forth. And in this case, you can kind of see the spill that's on the fence, but that's all right. I feel like that kind of blends into the image. It kind of blends in with all the other ambient light too as well. And if it wasn't obviously for, the use of the speed light and the MagMod sphere, then this would be more of a silhouette, right? But so I had it just kind of the light position somewhat pretty close to them, probably about 6 or 7 feet away, slightly above them, and kind of on camera left. The reason why you don't see it there is because it's photoshopped out, right? So nice. For people that want to know the stats, it's shot with a 35 millimeter ISO 50, which I don't know if there are some photographers that don't know that their full frame cameras can go down to ISO 50, get that little bit of extra, ambient light kind of broken down by, jumping down the ISO, and shot at 200th and f10. So, because I wanted, basically the clouds, I want to capture all the details in the clouds in the building too as well. So,
nice.
In reality, is if I shot this, I was more governed by the available light. I didn't have any of my ND filters. So, if I shot this obviously at 2.0 or 1.4, which most kind of available light photographers would probably do, it would be totally blown out, unless I somewhat governed obviously by the shutter speed too as well, since high speed sync wouldn't give me as much juice as I would need.
No, absolutely. It's funny because I mean, how often do people go up to that F10, those levels, and I love how you used it here. And dude, I'm such a huge fan of leading lines and even clean space. A lot of times just having that clean space behind somebody's head, you made sure that their head was just to the side. You had those lines going into them, but you made sure their head was just to the side enough that they have that nice clean space right behind them. So really cool shot. So love it. And by the way, guys, one more thing I'll just mention too for those who are watching live. If you guys have questions, obviously post them. But if you guys also, if you see something you really like or love, if you click on that little like or love button during the conversation, it will actually be able to show Keith later on maybe some of the things that really stood out. So anyhow, thanks so much for sharing that image as well, Keith. That's an awesome one. What else do you have for us? I want to keep learning, man.
I actually the next one I have here is more of a detail shot, not so much of a portrait shot. Well, one thing we
Yeah.
like to do, and I kind of blame this on some of my mentors and slash peers of like Tony Hoffer, Amy Hoffer, and like Sam Sauce, who are giants in the industry, and they always would take these wicked ring shots, or they do take these wicked ring shots. And it's when I started kind of getting into photography back in 2009, 2010. Um, I figured that's the standard. That's what all photographers do. They take wicked ring shots. So I got to start doing them too as well. So this kind of, I think it pretty much holds you to that standard. Whenever I take a shot like this, my couples that book me are expecting, kind of a cool and unique ring shot. I try not to do one the same, just like this exact same shot unless somebody asks me to, but I never like to replicate the same thing over and over, regardless if it's a ring shot, regardless if it's a portrait. Try to do something different and challenge myself.
Yeah.
In this case, we were just about packed up, ready to. I think we have already spent maybe half an hour, 45 minutes longer than we should. We had to get home to our son, and my wife Allie reminds me, "Hey, you didn't take a ring shot." I was like, "Oh shit, I got to do one, and I never just want to, kind of just leave it out there. I figure I can do something relatively quick." They had sparklers there, which not every wedding does have a sparkler, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to somehow incorporate it. So I asked a couple for the rings, and brought them out, and then actually the bottom of what where the rings are sitting on is a fire hydrant. Actually, it's kind of ironic, sparklers and a fire hydrant. But
Oh, that's
I
like
put it on there.
that's the big nut on top of the fire hydrant, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So I put it up there, put the two rings up there. They didn't have a third ring, and I kind of played around with it, but with some of the settings, it didn't take me too long to dial in. But we had a couple of sparklers too that we could have burned. Kind of like do some test shots to make sure I got my ambient right and so forth before starting to kick off the actual shots and so forth. So so Allie's actually, well, actually no, actually in this case I had a light stand. So I kind of remembering, but I had a light stand holding a speed light and a MagMod, the mag snoot. So they kind of and it fully extended to get that light just to kind of drop on this one area, and then shot actually at 1/13 of a second at 6.3 to kind of get that drag, and that's where you see those the sparks of light kind of go off all over the place. If it was any quicker, then you probably see it, obviously slowed down. You wouldn't have streaks of light and so forth. So it's kind of playing around the settings. Shot with a 100 millimeter macro. I have the IS version 2.8, and the ISO is at 500. So just don't. I wasn't trying to get a whole lot of ambient light, only from the light that was being caused by the sparkler. So I was really pleased how it kind of worked out. If anybody kind of wants to know, I know some people ask, how the hell did you get those rings to stay up there without even moving? I mean, I think by now a lot of people probably know that using the trick of kind of putty to put it on there and get them to stay. You don't use a whole lot, because the more you use, the more you're going to have to take out in Photoshop.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably the best, whatever $1 or $2 investment you can have when it comes to ring shots.
Yeah, one little tool a lot of photographers keep in their bag is that dental wax. It's you can get it at Walmart or anywhere. It's just in the teeth section. It's for braces typically. It's just a little clear wax, and you can put a little bit down there, and then, like you said, you typically will have to Photoshop just the edge out. But dude, 6 months from now, I'm gonna be posting a photo like this, and I'm gonna be like, Keith Lee was my inspiration. That shot is amazing, dude. I love this ring shot. It might be one of my all-time favorite ring shots. Incredible. By the way, Erica Palomares Oloa, if I said that right, said gorgeous ring shot with an exclamation point. So, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. Super cool. What else? Can we bother you for some more images? Do you have maybe a couple more you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple more here. So, actually, that's the EXIF information, which is probably the same thing either way, but let me get it without it. Okay, so this shot was for a commercial shoot for, as you can probably imagine, not for Christian Louboutin shoes, but for Sbarro. They make these high-end coolers that are just, I'm kind of biased, obviously, because I shot with them, and I just think they're just really, really cool. But either way, we were on the hilltops of Malibu. They were doing a full-blown kind of campaign for video and photography too as well. It was funny because like one of the things they wanted to show off was luxury, that these coolers are for people that are, of a certain, demographic and so forth. That's why you have to get that idea of the shoes. Anyone that is a shoe fanatic, girls that is, and I guess guys too as well, since they make guy shoes, know about the red bottom shoes. The funny story about this is that they only had one pair, and they had 3 models, and they were being kind of tossed around. Like I'd be setting up an image while they were doing video in the next room, so I would probably have maybe 5 minutes with the shoes. So staging this picture up, I had the model stand there, and I had this idea that I wanted the beautiful Malibu background on the coast, in the background, the hills, and the light was starting to go. It's starting to be sunset at this point, so you get a tint of orange and some of that blue. So I started kind of like any image, kind of breaking it down. First, you think of the idea, and then you set your settings for the ambient light, and then you start introducing your off-camera light. Start kind of adding here and there. So in this case, I used 3 lights, all gridded. None of them had the mag sphere of any sort, but so in this case, I had one that was coming from camera right, directly camera right, and then I had one coming from lower camera right, which was lighting up her legs, or at least on the right side, and then I had one camera left, which was lighting up her back, because with the shadow, with the ambient light and the shadow that was being produced by the flash of speed light on the right side, it was causing her entire back to be kind of completely in the shadow. So I kind of want to balance all those 3 things out, and again, introducing one light at a time. First, lighting up her face. Okay, once I have that dial in, it's going up with the next light, the lower right side, of the speed light, which were hitting her legs, and then the final component was the speed light on the left side, which was lighting her back. Once I had that all complete, then I started working a little bit on posing and saying, okay, open the cooler, look down, give me a smile, arch your back, tilt your leg in until I got the shot that I wanted with. So it took a little bit of time to set up, not a tremendous amount of time, but it's important when you're setting up pictures like this to break it down to the elementary level and like one component at a time. Don't try to throw 3 lights at one and try to fire them all off. Do one thing at a time and kind of get one dialed in before you start the next. Some of the information that, if you care to know, is it was shot with a 45 tilt shift. In this case, I didn't use any of the tilt or shift functionality. It was just more about how wide I wanted. I didn't want to use a 35 millimeter and have that much distortion. 50 would have been too tight. This was like not cropped at all. And I also wanted to get to maybe some of that low contrast too as well. Shot at 1/200th of a second, 4.5 to get a little bit more sharpness in the background too as well. And at ISO 50. I remember shooting this at ISO 50 because I really wanted to pull in that ambient light. Even though the sun was starting to go down, I wanted to get that, make sure that the ocean, the coast, and the sky were very blue. Also, too, you can probably tell I used gels on this. If I remember correctly, it was probably. I used a 1/4 CTO.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I was thinking that it looked like there was some warmth to her skin, which I love because there's a contrast of that warmth and that coolness. And I've mentioned that before. It's one of my favorite things in photographs. When you can show that contrast there. So great shot, dude. very commercial. I'm sure the company was super stoked to use it.
Yeah, they loved it. I mean, I loved producing it. It took a little time, but again, when I go back to emphasizing on setting up each light individually until you have it right, it's going back to the philosophy of measure twice, cut once, right? Don't just kind of like chimp it in the camera constantly, like, okay, not with this and this, and then it gets kind of frustrating. You do it in components, it works out so much better.
Well, and I think you bring up great advice too with regards to adding one light at a time. I mean, you can put all the lights there, but just don't have them all fire, because then sometimes it's hard to figure out, wait, what's the issue here? Like, if you put one light and you kind of see the effect, and then you put another light and you put another light, then all of a sudden you start to kind of piece it together. But if you put them all out there and then fire it, and then you're not really sure, what's causing the issue or why the light's going everywhere, or whatever it is. But really cool stuff. I got another comment here from Brad Blackburn. He says, awesome stuff. I've drawn so much inspiration from Keith's work. Keep it up, man. So
thank you, sir.
Make sure you saw that. Good stuff, Keith. Do you have maybe another one or two images you can share? I'm not sure where we're at, but I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's past 10:30, but would love to see something else if you got it.
That's totally fine. I got one more image.
Cool.
Again, I could talk about this all day long, and of course, I'd probably get in a lot of trouble with Allie, the wife. But I narrowed this down from like probably 20 images, and I thought even 6 wouldn't be too much. So if you have the time, then I can kind of talk you on this last image over here.
Let's do it.
Okay. In this case, this was an engagement session for this couple who, weirdly enough, which I think is totally cool, because I don't get to, typically when you do engagement sessions, you ask the question of where do you want to do it at, and it's either at a park or some kind of urban location and so forth, or maybe something completely different. In this case, it was something completely different, where they wanted to do the session at Whole Foods, or a local Whole Foods. We have a couple, but the one close by our house is the one we picked. I had this idea that, and they cleared it with the manager and all this great stuff. We went in probably maybe an hour after they opened, so it wasn't too crowded. And the couple was just up for anything and everything. So that was really, really awesome. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to stick them in this shopping cart, or stick her in the shopping cart and have him push her, which, as you can see by the image, and to kind of complete things off, to have some kind of book as she's reading, and having them have a good time. So reality is they're not really moving very, very fast. I can't imagine. I think he was just kind of like hopping along as he was pushing her, making sure she didn't crash into anything. Yeah. I had my assistant and good friend Ray Prop help me out on this shot, where he was holding the flash. I believe he had it on a light stick, which is basically a modified light stand without the 3 lights on the bottom. Uh-huh. And he had a speed light with a MagGrid too as well. And the reason why, a couple of reasons. Well, one reason why we used a flash, in case people are wondering, why just use the ambient light. As you can kind of see, it's very yellow, like most lighting that's in a lot of these kind of industrial stores or anything like that kind of places. So we wanted to, kind of use more of a white light. The reason why we use a flash is because I wanted to freeze them in that moment, and that's what flash will do for you, right? If I had to drag the shutter, maybe it would have come out all right, but at this point, I wanted them to be pinpoint, well lit, and also add a little drama to it, and freeze them in that moment as he's pushing it. So you still get that motion blur from his shoes, and the background's blurred too. So if I did not use a grid in this case, you'd probably see spill, which you would see in this case is probably, I believe, the eggs and produce aisle and so forth. Not the produce, but the dairy area. That would probably be frozen, and it wouldn't look like they were moving. In this case, it makes them look like they're moving 60 miles an hour, strolling along Whole Foods and aisle of Whole Foods. So that's the main reason why I use the flash and the grid to control that light. And then obviously what makes these images too at the end of the day is like their reactions too. It looks like they're having fun. They're making sure that they're not killing any other shoppers or anything like that, which was definitely a cool moment. Cool little fun fact about this image too is that Ray, my helper, my assistant that day, who was holding the flash, he would have to kind of move with them to be consistent, right? So I didn't just wait for them to be in front of my frame and take this picture. I kind of panned with them. So he would stay around the same amount of distance away from them so the light would be consistent as I would get, 4 or 5 shots as I was going through. So he kind of walked with them because we already measured the light from whatever it would be, 7 or 8 feet away. If they would have been 9, 10 feet away, the light would have been different, right? So he had to make sure that he was walking back with them at the same time.
It's interesting, Keith, because I've seen MagMod used in a lot of ways, but I've never seen it used to freeze motion in a particular area of the photograph. And I think that's what really stands out to me is that, and I'm glad you shared this image. I had never seen it before. I'm not sure if you have it on your site or what, but I guess what I really like about it is, like you said, if that flash would have gone all over, it would have froze a lot more of that image as you're moving. But being that it's only hitting a certain spot, I don't know. I've never thought about using light in that way to just freeze a certain area of your image. So that's amazing. Awesome job, dude.
Thank you. And yeah, I'll use and I have other examples too as well. But there'll be cases where I purposely do motion blur, right? So to freeze a subject using flash and a combination of flash and MagMod and even maybe a mag sphere, and then purposely moving my camera, right, to drag the shutter and drag the ambient light or anything that's in the ambient light. Could be it could be strung lights, it could be street lamps, it could be whatever. But I want to freeze just the subjects. Obviously you have to be within a certain distance of the subjects, but yeah, that's one of the tools I have in the toolbox and pull out whenever I have that I feel inspired to.
That's awesome, dude. Justin Haugen here, he said, I'll just read his quote. He said, I've immediately not seen Keith's work until this live cast. Loving the stuff he shared here. I really enjoyed the movement in this photograph. Great stuff and looking forward to seeing more. So that was from Justin. And then Cami Grodzinski, she says, love that, with an exclamation point. I don't know if have you ever met Cami?
I have not. But a name like Cami, how can she be a bad person?
Right. I met her at WPPI, and she is hilarious and awesome. Her personality is just outstanding. She's a ton of fun. Brazilian, if I remember correctly. She's from Brazil, so has a kind of the short hair and just a ton of personality. So, Cami, if you're still watching, it was great meeting you at WPPI. So, very cool. Keith, man, really appreciate it. There's one more here. Michael. Michael says, I was thinking the same thing, might use it with long exposure astrophotography, which includes subjects. So, people are inspired by the fact that you use flash to freeze the motion there. That's really cool. Love it, dude.
Good. That's what I'm hoping for, to inspire others and how they can use it in different ways. Before I forget, to stay consistent with the other images, this was shot with a 50 millimeter ISO 400, shutter speed of 1/60th of a second at f4.
Nice. Very cool. Hey, Keith, I know you mentioned your websites earlier. Let's mention it again. And then also, is there anywhere people can learn more about you? Do you do any workshops? Do you have any channels where you have tutorials, any of that kind of stuff? Why don't you unshare your screen so you can bring yourself back up here? I know we didn't talk about it earlier, but I don't know if you have any of that kind of stuff. But if you do, for those who are watching, I'm sure they would love to hear about it.
Yeah, the website, our website is www.keithleestudios.com. Instagram is at Keith Lee Studios. And then we also have a boudoir site, which we also use MagMods to as well. It's probably not as predominant, and I don't think we tend to kind of showcase that we use MagMod products when it comes to boudoir. It's just, a different genre and so forth.
Yeah.
But that's at Keith Lee Studios Uncovered. We also have a Facebook presence and a business page, so you can kind of look for us, Keith Lee Studios and Keith Lee Studios Uncovered. Workshops, I don't do them. Not that I'm against it. It's no time at this point. I don't mind answering questions. Anybody that has ever sent me an email or message and asked me a question about a ring shot, about how I lit it, about what ISO, what lens I ever used, I've always replied back. But part of the fun is doing things yourselves and trying to figure things out. I think that's one of my first loves of photography and continues to be my love of photography is looking at other images, regardless if it's my peers, from other photographers, or looking at a commercial shoot, or looking at a GQ spread or anything like that, is reverse engineering it and trying to understand what that photographer did to make that image. What kind of light source did they use? Where did they have the light source? Where was it placed? What kind of lens did they use? How was their editing and so forth? And by far, it's nothing I've perfected, but it's an extremely useful skill set to have. So whenever you see an image and you want to kind of break it down, and do that in your head, kind of figure things out and on your own, and you might get it right, you might not get it wrong. It's always good to kind of cross-check with that photographer that made that image if you can, and see if you're right. I mean, I'm always impressed when I'll have like other photographers, friends, and say, use this and use that on this image. And I'm like, awesome, man, your stuff. And it's such an important tool when you want to recreate your own image. When the time comes, you might not, exactly reproduce the exact same thing, but once you know what it takes to produce that image, and now you know what to do and what to create for yourself, which is so important.
Yeah, dude, I'm loving it, man. And you seriously inspired so many of us. Rodell here, he said, I'm very inspired and hope to create art like these. And there's a comment from Brad as well. He says he wants to work with you sometime in St. Louis. So you've inspired a lot of us, man. I really do appreciate it. And thanks so much for taking the time tonight to have this conversation. Again, for those who are watching on YouTube, if you want to watch these live conversations and be able to communicate with us as we go, we're in the MagMod community. And then, of course, find Keith at his websites. Keith, you're a stud, man. We really do appreciate you taking this time. And congratulations to you and Allie on the new baby coming forward. We can't wait to see the image you create of the little girl.
Thank you. I have a lot to kind of live up to for considering the car image of Beckett. So we'll have to sit tight and see how that kind of plays out. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm totally honored, flattered, and I'm super happy to share anything I can with you guys. Thanks for keeping up. So thank you for producing such a quality product, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Thank you, Keith. I know it's 11 o'clock, so I'm gonna let you get back to Allie. She's probably waiting for you being 7 months pregnant now, 6 months, 7 months. You got to go in there and get a nice 8 months. She deserves a massage, man. Get in. So hey, thank you again, Keith. Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in and for your comments and likes and hearts and all that kind of good stuff. So appreciate you guys.